we are going to start our second panel, which is on marketing trends. And I'm super excited about this panel. We have three amazing marketers who have very unique insights on various aspects of marketing. We have Doc Williams, who is a brand strategist, live streaming guru, and solutions architect. He got his start in fitness, but has transitioned into working in digital marketing and coaching, and had the pleasure of working with brands like the WNBA and Gary Vee, and has now he helps entrepreneurs find their unique voice, and he has a special skill set in leveraging technology as it relates to marketing and developing a strong marketing strategy. In addition, we have Dr. Janae Eisenstrass. She is a signatory with the United Nations Business Action Hub for the United Nations Global Compact Program. She's an award-winning businesswoman with several leadership awards, such as the Top 40 Under 40, the Top 10 Aspiring Women in Canada, the 2019 Conscious Company Media's Top 22 Business Leaders, the 2013 and 2014 YMCA, WCA Women of Distinction and Business and Entrepreneur of the Year. She's the current recipient of the 2020 WXN, Canada's Most Powerful Women Entrepreneur Award, Top 100. The Stevie Award winner for Female Entrepreneur of the Year in Canada. And her company was awarded a rank on Canada's Business Magazine 2020 Growth List, making her the first Black Canadian woman in history to scale a 9-figure organization. So congratulations, Dr. Janae. And she's also a member of the Young Presidents Organization and a participant in the Concordia Leadership Council and a Global Goodwill Ambassador for the Global Goodwill Ambassador Foundation. That was a mouthful, but that was great. And in addition to Dr. Janae, we also have Rohan Gilks, a serial entrepreneur and founder of Lawn Tribe, Backpack, Wet Shave Club, Maize and Black, and Launch 27. He has helped hundreds of companies launch and grow through a series of transparent case studies on his companies. Along the way, he has been featured in the Washington Post, Mixergy, the Startup Foundation, and other business media, and he is a member of the Young Entrepreneur Council. Rohan has served as an advisor for a number of local startups and co-founded the startup incubator group living.com. He has developed and presented business case studies for Catholic University MBA program and is a regular speaker at startup conferences. So I'm super, super excited about this event, this panel. And so what we want to do is, so one of the questions we asked as part of our survey was really around how have businesses changed their marketing approach since COVID-19? And what we found that 69.6% of respondents said that they had to change their marketing approach. And so what we wanted to do is use this panel as an opportunity to kind of look at what are some marketing trends that organizations and companies and small businesses should be thinking about. And so what I would love to do is start off by asking the question, what marketing trends should businesses consider in this new normal? And I would love for Dr. Janae to kick it off and talk about it from her lens, which is consumer insights and data analytics. Dr. Janae?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here with an amazing panel of people. Yeah, we can talk across a multitude of different sectors. I could definitely speak to this and how companies need to continue to shift their marketing strategy, particularly in the realm of social media, to maintain a connection and relevance with their audience and clients. we should not negate the impact of the upcoming election also as it pertains to public policy and the ever-changing agendas regarding data and privacy collection, which directly affects marketing, and as well as the social impact that has definitely impacted marketing over the last few months as the world continues to spearhead the initiative against dismantling anti-Blackness. I know that since COVID hit, there's a myriad of different sectors that have definitely been touch. One of those sectors has been, in fact, finance and banking. And so sometimes when we look at some of those global markets outside of the US, markets such as Canada, Germany, Israel, and the UK are having more serious conversations about moving entirely to digital currencies. Investors obviously were happy with capitalizing from debt equity opportunities during COVID, but are happier that the markets have reopened. And so there's just so many different markets that have just been impacted. And so we have to definitely talk about part of the sectors, but when we look at the marketing strategies for some of these sectors, it's interesting. Some of the key things that I would share with people as we're looking at some of these different marketing opportunities is that there's a few trends that we've definitely seen that has taken place. One of the biggest marketing surges definitely came from the e-commerce sector, and I believe that Luke even touched upon that too when he was talking. We've seen a massive influx there that is rising, and it's not going to stop. Actually, what I've actually shared with many people is that COVID was the year, if you were going to start an e-com business, this was the year, just on how many different online retailers have popped up and taken advantage of this opportunity. And people that, and we saw retailers that weren't online, some of the big retailers like JCPenney, Neiman Marcus were adversely affected if they did not have strong online presence and lacked a sense of connectivity. So connectivity is actually going to be the key piece. So there's a few trends that we've seen pop up, okay? And one of the things, especially when we look at platforms like Instagram or shoppable posts, right? You've seen how people are able to shop directly on these platforms. And so that's something that has already existed, but you're going to even see more of a surge in that as we move into 2021. You know, 72% of people that make online purchases said that they purchase right in the application. And so people that are utilizing or have online e-com definitely want to take advantage of that. Also, augmented reality. One of the first companies to get into augmented reality happened to be art.com. And for people that don't know what augmented reality is, it's when the user can in fact take a picture using their smart device and look at what the product that they're seeking to purchase will look like in their own space. And so you're seeing more and more retailers such as, you know, Wayfair, All Modern. A lot of platforms are taking advantage of that. Even in the fashion space, you're seeing that more platforms are coming up with the option of online mannequins that are custom to size based upon a sizing, that people can see what the potential products can look like on them. The other part is making your content interactive. Video is key. Video is king. You know, you want to be able to capture that person, create a sense of direct connection. 91% of users say that if the content is interactive, then it actually helps them transition to making that purchase right away instead of using flat or static content. So, and it's not to say that people don't like some of those inspirational posts or they're not going to read, but it also depends on the time of day. You know, just with the disruption of COVID, we've seen that people's attention spans as the market has reopened has definitely been a little bit more scattered. There's no sense of predictability that's happening in the market. So I think one of the biggest other areas is also personalization, social focus, and data. When we're even looking at personalization, you know, many millennials right now, and this is tied in more or less with some of the social focus, many millennials are saying that they won't even purchase from brands that are not kind of spearheading around some of the social problems that they are concerned about. And so brands are going to have to become very astute in being able to decipher what are our what are our clients interested in? How do we tap into that narrative? And one of the ways is a lot of companies have been gathering their own metrics, but as public policy has been shifting around data, and especially with the upcoming election, you're going to have to become more mindful depending on if it goes back to a Democratic candidate. The policy on privacy is definitely going to change a lot for marketers that are doing directly targeted marketing. So you're going to have to ensure that if you want predictive metrics, that you in fact have um, very ethically sourced data, because a lot of the legislation that is under the Democratic administration would be in fact shifting. If it remains the same administration, then it's in fact going to stay the same. So I think that when we look at some of these things, it's, you know, it's interactive content, personalization with a social focus, being aware of what's happening in public policy. I'm just kind of rehashing. And then augmented reality, make sure that, you know, the client can definitely see what the product looks like, because if they're relying on online, make sure that your posts are shoppable. And then the other part, lastly, I would share is like SEO. You know, one of the things is that IAB, I sat on a panel a few months ago with IAB where myself and a few other top marketers, we talked about how, you know, when the disruption took place, people were really late in the game of SEO. As more people are getting online, you definitely want to ensure that you are optimized. Don't wait until the second or third wave comes in. The internet is becoming more crowded, and as it becomes more crowded, you want to make sure that you are landing on that first page. So just ensure that you are in fact covering all of your bases. And I think that covers some of the key components that I see that are going to that are not just trending now, but that are definitely going to be taking us into 2021, some of the as it pertains to social media marketing.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And I have some follow-up questions for you as well. So stay tuned. But we're going to jump over to Doc real quick. So Doc, what are some trends and best practices that businesses should be thinking about as it relates to their marketing?
You know, that's a really good question. As you're thinking about marketing, you know what? Actually, I'll just be real with you. In COVID, in marketing, everything I thought that was true about marketing, that I really thought at my core, actually ended up being true. And all the other stuff that people made up about all these things, that you have to go by all these KPIs, it actually fell by the wayside. And the reason I believe in that, and I have seen this, is when a lot of times people are heavy on just ads or things that are on top, it's very similar to any kind of dish. It's seasoning on top of stuff. And yeah, some salt is good, whatever. But if the dish isn't good, adding all that other stuff just isn't going to work either way. So what do I mean by that? If you don't have the core piece, if you don't have a good product, if you don't have creativity, and you don't explain why people care about your products, adding a bunch of ads or all of this other optics to make it seem better, it's just not going to matter in the end. And that's because budgets are going to change. All of these things are going to be going all over the place. But if you go to the core, it's going to end up in the right place. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a couple things. For example, we just launched for one of our influencers last week, actually had less than 1,000 followers, didn't have a bit of money, anything like that. But we were understanding what the messaging was, what he was trying to do. He just popped, and I just looked it up. On his Facebook, he has 400,000 views, and he just got offered to the biggest contract for he's a R&B artist. So he just got contracted there. So how did we do it? It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't anything that we overly, optimized or did anything. It was the narrative and the story and understanding how we were going to present him when he needed to be in the right location and go on from there. And this isn't just entertainment or an influencer. We've seen this, especially in COVID, with e-commerce, the ones that we've worked with in there. We've done this with other businesses at a local level. It's really just distilling down what we need to do. So I wrote a couple things, and we'll kind of talk about it and go from there. Number one, and we were talking about this before, just being real. Like that intimacy, that's what people want. These kids, they don't want to see all this stuff that's already doctored up or it looks too good. They just want to make it look raw, make it just what they want. If you're looking at Snapchat, Instagram, all of these things, what is it? Is it done professionally? Not really. It's just a day in the life. And if you go and ask a kid, are you watching, NBC, or are you watching ABC, anything that's like, for the most part, they can tell you what YouTuber they're interested in more than an actual celebrity or a movie stars, things like that. Things are changing. So what I would really push is, and we'll go in a second, how every business can do this, but how can you just approach your consumer and have a real conversation and speak like a human? How can you do it? That's what every single business owner has to figure out and what they need to do right now. Because if not, it's trying to go for this trend or do this thing. And it might work for a while. You might get a spike here and then it'll drop right back down. Or you might throw some money at it, it spikes back up and then drop right back down. But having a real conversation with the customer, having a real personality, you can see who's crushing it. In fact, if you're looking at certain brands that have really worked on their voice and how they're doing this, for example, look, if you're looking for brands that just kill it and they're actually big companies, but it still distills down. If you look at Wendy's against Popeyes on Twitter, if you're looking at how now McDonald's figured out that they were missing something and then they had to get Travis Scott to do a meal, right? They're trying to figure out a voice. They're trying to be leveling with people. So the first thing is just figure out how you can approach your customer. And the best thing I say is that's practical, whatever size business you are. If you have a sales team, if you don't, how many times have you just tried to call them up? I heard this earlier on the other panel, but also not just calling them up, actively listening and then pivoting your marketing around that. How many times does that happen? The other thing is too, creativity. So how creative are you with your marketing? Have you talked to someone about your path of creativity? Are you constantly testing it out, seeing how you can change it, or at least know that you're on the right track? Now, it's great if something's working, but for the most part, it's going to work for a little while, and then the messaging is going to get stale, or it just fades into the background. So how can you constantly feed that creativity, either from yourself, if you're a small business, if you're going to be that, that voice or that personality behind the brand, or how do you empower your team to be creative and to go out and to develop their own voice? The other thing, which I think is crucial, I'm just echoing what a lot of people have said already, but I would almost triple down, if I can, live streaming and just being there present. I can't speak about it enough. When you're live streaming, not only can you be yourself, or you can put on that personality to be on screen and everything like that, but you can test products, services very quickly with a audience that is going to give you a lot of good feedback instantly. So I view it almost like a TV show where you're talking to the audience, what's going on, you're asking them questions. Do they like this? Do they not like this? Any brand can do this. Now, again, depending on the size of the business, your audience and everything, where you're going to go live, I understand that. But trying to get that connection with the audience and start getting that feedback, it's incredible. In the chat, and they see that you actually respond to them, nothing like it in the world. I mean, yes, you could go to a conference and people, talking to you from the crowd. I understand that. But the reason why it's so powerful when it's live streaming, you can record those comments. You can see how people are responding as you're going through it. So that ebb and flow, it's very similar to just DJing live at a wedding or at a club. You're seeing people or if you haven't been a DJ, if you've been on the other side, you might not remember your favorite club or your favorite DJ, but do you remember when there was a DJ that was really bad at their job at that wedding and people were just like, oh my God, like everyone just leaves, right? The same thing similar with businesses when they're doing the right thing with live streaming. You can have an ebb and flow. You can have this great relationship with the customer. When it's bad, everyone leaves. So it's understanding the ebb and flows of what's going on with your target demographic, understanding what you can test in live streaming. And even if you're saying, well, Doc, like I don't have someone, I don't feel comfortable, I don't want to do it, anything like that. Well, how about just having a brand influencer do it and they speak for your business or anything like that? And when they're live and they're doing those things, then you're having an impact. You're able to really connect and test out what you're going to be doing in the industry. Now, say for instance, practicality, you're out there and you're saying, listen, you're saying a lot of things. I don't know where to begin. In fact, I just don't want to listen to you anymore. That's fine. Well, before you go, I got just 4 things that maybe try to think about, write down. The first one is your idea. So if you're going to be marketing for this year going on, what's your idea? What do you want to do? Are you trying to just get them aware of your brand? Is that the first thing that you're trying to do? Or maybe you're trying to have them sign up for something, understand your resource guide, something, understanding what you mean, what you stand for as a company. Is that what you're trying to do? Or maybe you're like, listen, doc, I don't have time for that. I'm trying to sell. I need money. Okay, that's fine. But do you have to be pushy about it? Can you just talk about what you're offering and see if people want it? And then as you're recording, you're seeing what people are doing. You understand the storylines that attract people that want to buy from you naturally. No one wants a pushy salesman. So again, that idea, what do you want to do with marketing this next year? How fast do you want to get this done? Okay, so 6 months, 3 months, what's your goals? Things like that, timeline, your ideas. The next one is, what is going to be your ask? Now, you might say, I would like your money, please. Well, that's fine too. And you might get a couple people, might get a couple suckers, which is fine. But most likely, you're getting that ask from someone that is looking for a solution, and you need to be speaking the right kind of language for them to relate and say, yes, I believe that you can get me to my goal. Okay. So what does reverse engineer that? What does that ask look like? Do you need to first get on a phone call with them? Do you first need to give them a free webinar, a free mini course, a free something for them to believe and get that easy win? And now they're like, okay, I got you. Now I'm getting it. Now I need to that. So what's that ask look like? And if you're not sure what that ask is, it's time to experiment. You're going to try different things. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but try it out. The last 2 is tracking. It's great that I say all these things. I'm like, yeah, just go do it. You'll be fine. Go ahead. You got to track if it's yes or no. You got to see if it actually works. Okay. And that's sometimes hard because you look at this and you get discouraged, or maybe you're too afraid to look at the numbers. Maybe, I don't want to see, I only converted at, it doesn't really matter. You just got to see what worked, what didn't work, and observe this every month to get better. And the last thing is reevaluate, be flexible, and realize this is a very turbulent time. No one's perfect. Marketing is going to continue to change. Understand your North Star, understand your values, go out there, be genuine. You'll be good to go. Thanks so much.
All right, that was great. And so before we hop into Q&A, we do get to see Mr. Rohan, or should we turn off the video?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're good? Okay. We were prepared for other things, but I'm super excited to introduce Rohan Gilks, who will be sharing his perspective on the question, what are some marketing trends businesses should be thinking about in this age of COVID?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. So like I'm going to be really, really quick. I only have like 4 points, but for me, these 4 points are the same things that we were doing before COVID that we're doing now and through COVID. And it has what has worked for me the entire time. From my living room, I've done a little over 20 million in like just hustling between like 3 or 4 companies. And we do the same thing. It's like the same thing every single time. So this is it. The first thing, and just we lead with transparency. So when we're building a business, like we essentially say, you know what, we're going to share everything that we can from the beginning. We share the idea, when we buy the domain, when we set up our hosting, when we choose our shipping materials. We share myself and my team in my living room hanging out, like we share the whole deal. And for us, that level of transparency has become really effective marketing for us. And so people, they sign on for the journey. And then by the time the product is done, they feel like a part of it. Like it's a part of themselves. And after that process, making a sale is really, really easy because they know us. They know what we like in our coffee because they've been following us for a long time. So that transparency has really worked. And I think more and more companies are going to start to do that. I see that there's this company Fast is rolling out right now, and they're being really transparent about it. And I think that's going to become more and more common, but it's been something that we've been doing for like the last 7 years, building businesses online. The second thing is how we think about ideas. So in the past, what we used to do was come up with a business idea and then go pursue it. And what that would do would introduce a bunch of risk. And we try to remove as much risk as possible when building businesses. What we do now is we go and build an audience first. We build an audience first. It could just be a Facebook group. It could be a Reddit following. It could be a Twitter following. It doesn't matter. Like, we build an audience around that thing first, find out what that audience wants, and then we build a product. So that building the audience part, it actually becomes marketing even before we create something to sell. And that removes all the risk, and we end up building exactly what people want, you know? So that's the second thing. The third thing for me is like customer-driven content. So, and this is all from like, you know, what I've learned has worked after trying to figure out what would work for so long. This is what has worked for us. So before we would say, okay, we need to put out some content to promote our business. Now we say, one, where do our customers hang out? Like, where do they spend the most time? What do they like to consume? So we look and see what they upvote, what they share, what they retweet, what they like, whatever. What type of content do they like? And then we go give them what we know that they want. So we, again, remove all the risks of creating content that they don't want by just giving them exactly what they want and finding a way to associate what they want with what we're selling. And that may seem minor, but it has been such a big win for us to approach it in that way versus trying to push content down people's throats, right? And the last thing is we want to find scale before we spend a single penny on ads. Before, and this is all from experience, we used to build a product, put it out there, and turn on ads. And then, you know, the only person that got rich from that was like Zuckerberg and like Facebook and Instagram and all those people. What we realize is that we can really build an audience around our product, build community, create massive content, drive sales, figure out our metrics and our acquisition costs and so on based on the cost it takes us to create content, and have this thing churning and the whole engine going and customer support set up and all of this stuff happening long before we spend our first dollar on content. And so those four things, transparency, how we come up with and nurture our ideas, how we create content, and how we build community so that we can scale way before we spend a dollar on ads. That's how we've been able to do well before COVID, during COVID, and hopefully after. Yeah.
All right. This is, I'm super excited about this part because we get to ask you all these amazing questions. So since you're still on my screen, Rohan, how do you start the process of building an audience? I think people say that you're supposed to start there, but the actual work of building an audience is actually kind of hard. So
yeah.
What advice you have?
Yeah, so for building an audience, it always starts with content for us. Everything starts with content. So we build an audience by saying, like first, like who do we want that audience to look like? Like, who's going to make up that audience? Then we say, where do they already spend time? Yeah, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It really depends on what we're selling. But where is that audience right now? It could be forums too. Some random forum that we've never heard about. And there's 100,000 people there, right? So where are they hanging out right now? Then we create content that agitates them, that inspires them, that drives some type of emotion, that then ends with them clicking a link to come back to our top of the funnel, which could just be a Facebook group, or it could be our forum, or it could be an email list. It could be something. But it always starts with content that we place on a platform that has a lot of people already, and not content that we place on our blog. That was the mistake we used to make. We put that content, massive content, on a platform that has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And funnel them back to where we want them to go. Yeah.
Thank you. One question I would like to ask Dr. Janae. So I would like to kind of elaborate a little bit more on your specialty, especially around consumer insights and data and the importance of that role in understanding your audience when you're thinking about putting together your marketing strategy. Because I think that what I find when I'm working with my clients is that people don't spend enough time thinking about their audience or understanding where to find them. And so what role does consumer insights and data play in that?
Well, consumer insights and data are amazing. And I think that Rohan and Doc touched on it. For sure. It's about connecting with your audience and paying attention to your audience and knowing what they want. So what you'll see is that there are a lot of companies right now. I'll give an example, like Vogue Business recently have found ways to monetize their data. I know even in what we do, when people show up at our door, you know, we're in possession of America's only ethically and verified consumer data, and it's the process on how we scrub and acquire that data. But really, it's through the power of conversation. And so, initially, when we're looking at some of those consumer insights, right? The big part, I think Rohan talked to, I was either Rohan or Doc that talked about client acquisition and diminishing your company's, you definitely want to diminish the company's burn rate. I think burn rate around ad spend. So one of the reasons why I shared parts of the public policy was in traditional marketing and advertising agencies, many people, what they don't share with you is this: a lot of the ad spend, and it's already been alluded to here, we're not spending, you shouldn't be spending $1 until you're able to tap into that voice and figuring out who the client is. And so initially, one of the reasons why we always talk about becoming more in tune with market insights and research and knowing your customer and having predictive data is so that way it's more of a bullseye effect of, we're no longer just kind of, oh, well, maybe this person will like this, or maybe this is like, no, this is exactly what LaKendra McNair will like, and this is who she is, and this is her profile, and this is everything down to who she is, down to even like potentially it could be, you know, the cost of her home. These types of metrics are very important because traditionally what's happened is that you have these egregious, so you may sometimes have these egregious ad spends, but then not even 75% of that ad spend is actually even connecting, going directly to your client. And so how do we diminish that? By hitting that actual bullseye, is that's by using verified data and knowing your audience. So that way, when you connect with them, you're not wasting that. And then it actually allows you to maximize your ad spend to over 90%. Instead of just kind of just this very obtuse, oh, well, maybe we're coming in close proximity. So I think when we're looking at market insights can be utilized in the past. It can still be used for forecasting, but it's not even used for forecasting anymore. People want to know with an absolute certainty, this is who my client is. And especially in the era of COVID, with just everything moment by moment. And I know everybody wants to get back to normal, but the reality is that we are no longer going to ever have a normal. This is going to be longer with us. You know, Edelman came out with, they had a webinar back in May, June of this year, where they said that they estimate that if there is a normal, it'll return around 2025. We're still 4+ years out from that, right? So it's just, there's certain markets that have been so impacted by this, like when we look at hospitality, the restaurant industry, travel, you know, those markets are gonna definitely have to come up with some really highly creative strategies on how they can even gather attention. And one of the areas that I've constantly stressed to some of these those types of clients is a gear on safety and complete transparency with clients, because they still, even though that some of these markets are seeing influxes, they're still not back to where they are by any means, and we don't know when they will ever get back to how long it will take and when they will get back to where they were prior to COVID.
Yeah, and I think that, so, when we talk about ad spend, I don't think that we should look at that as something as exclusive to very large organizations. I
Right.
think that, so, even if you're a small business and you're using social media and you're trying to explore the use of digital ads, what Dr. Janae is saying is that, understanding your customer on a very intimate level will allow you to then target your advertising in a way where you're getting the most bang for your buck. And so go ahead.
Well, I was just about to say it's exactly it. Like the larger companies, like my company and larger companies can definitely afford that. It's the smaller companies, like small businesses, took a massive hit. There's a lot of companies that just are no longer in existence, and even some larger companies that just they were very unprepared. There was no contingency. And so as we move forward, I think that that's my point, is that you want to have very predictive metrics, so that way you're able to gauge with almost a level of absolution or certainty that when we spend these dollars, they're actually going to hit our target bullseye, instead of just kind of randomly just putting out there. And that's partially why, in the past, like I think it was Rohan that already alluded to it, like Facebook and Instagram became really really successful because they were the ones that were really controlling the market on that. But I think as more marketers and even consumers are becoming educated, and even startups are becoming educated on how, and doing more of their due diligence on how they spend their marketing dollars.
Yeah. So what I find very interesting, I'm going to bring you into this conversation, Doc, too, but I wanted to mention something.
No problem.
I'm
honored to be on this panel. Like Rohan and Doc both had like these really amazing talks. I was like, man, this is like our team here.
But what I find very interesting about the juxtaposition is that your consumer insight is very beneficial in general when it comes to marketing, but it's very helpful from an ad marketing perspective, especially if you're spending those dollars. But also from a content marketing perspective, which is what I love about what Rohan does, is that he's really become an expert on how to create content in a way that can create community. And so I guess my question is for you, Rohan, before I jump to Doc, is, do you use any of that consumer insights when thinking about your strategy and how you're using these platforms for creating that content, which helps to create community?
Not in a sophisticated enough way, I think. I don't think that, we've ever spent enough time to think about it in a really sophisticated way. Like we've never boiled down our marketing to say like we're going after, people like 30 to 45 with, that live in the suburb. Like we've never done that, but there's value there, and it's something that we can do to improve the efforts that we make right now around content. But we essentially like go after a really, really big audience of people that kind of fits our rough look at what our ideal customer is going to be in our minds. So if you're selling something like shaving products for women, we may go after a Reddit subreddit of Black ladies or something like that. If you're selling software, we may go after Hacker News or something along those lines. So we kind of like really approach it from a higher level and go for really high volume, meaning that there's a lot of people are going to see this content after we put it out versus really, really targeted. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And so, Doc, in the lines of content marketing, you talked about it's important to find your voice. How do you actually, like, what advice would you give to someone, and what do you mean by finding your voice? And then I'm gonna ask two questions in one because I want you to answer, and then we got to pivot to our break. But the next question is, I want you to talk a little bit more about the role of technology in marketing. Because I know that you work a lot with products, and you've pivoted a lot in terms of using products in your marketing strategy. So can you talk to both of those questions?
Yeah. So for voice, I mean, honestly, this sounds ridiculous and kind of dumb, but like you just got to start talking. Like you got to just get used to hearing your own voice and get used to just saying a lot of dumb things. And what I mean by that is like live streaming, if you're trying to find your voice, we view it almost like creating a song, high notes, low notes. When you're creating content, you need to figure out what gives you excited. So then we can find out what the path is when you're getting excited or really excited about something, or if something really annoys you or something that you're furious about and you want to change in the industry, then you know your path. And then once you find your voice, you know, okay, if I hit this high note over here, does it bring more people to me? Does it gravitate more people? Or does it do the opposite? When I get really upset, some influencers or some brands, when they go just really that path, that's funny and people can gravitate towards them. Sometimes they cut too deep, and when they go that path, people are like, we gotta stay away from that brand. So it's really understanding the highs and lows, and then looking at the reception of those notes. The thing with technology, I think, because there's just so many no-code tools, there's so many platforms you can get. I really think about, look at your objective. What are you trying to solve? See the handle, not the tool. Figure out what you need to accomplish, then find the tool that will accomplish your goal. Do not be focused on the newest thing or this one got VC funded or whatever. Just try to solve your problems. Go with that tech. You'll be good.